Welcome into the Jon and Lebo show. Just want to thank Sean Carney for that open. Sean's a good friend of the shows and making those. He actually made us a lot to choose from for our new open, but I think this one was definitely one that we'll use to come. But just wanted to thank Sean.
Yeah, he made us like five of them, and I flirted around with a lot of different bad music. Decided to go with that little not classic rock, some older rock though, and I think it sounds good. Goes well with his voice.
It does, and this is a emergency podcast. I wish we could have like an open for one of these, like whenever they come around,
Emergency.
like
I
some
don't know.
sirens
Yeah,
or something like stupid like that, or some shit like that. But anyway, we don't, but we will maybe. Anyway,
is what it is.
so
But what is the emergency, John?
obviously everyone knows and you know it, but thanks for asking to make a smooth start for it. The trade that Zach Lowe, Ramona Shelburne, and a lot of big-time NBA reporters and very credible people have come out with saying is that it's almost fully finalized. The Sixers just need medical reports. Is that Philly will send the number 3 pick and a combination of picks. I think the speculation now from what Woj tweeted before is the 2018 Lakers first-round pick that the Sixers acquired from the Michael Carter-Williams
It's
deal, and also a 2021 first-round pick to move up to number 1 to draft Markelle Fultz. Now, obviously, this trade won't happen until draft night because the Celtics want to make sure they're getting what they want. I think it's Jackson. But this is a big deal because, one, I'm not sure if they've ever made a trade, are one of the best rivalries historically in the NBA. They've met the most in the playoffs. Right now, they're not a huge rivalry, but overall, they've been a big one. And also, a top 5 pick hasn't been traded in a number of years.
it would be a huge trade. I mean, what else did you expect from Danny Ainge? He's got this really valuable asset, and he doesn't think Markelle Fultz is the guy. That seems to be the consensus over with the Celtics organization, and they're in a really, really, really good position because the Sixers really want this guy. The Lakers really want this guy. They have all the leverage in the situation, and if those two teams think that Markelle Fultz is a franchise-altering player, then they're gonna overpay for him. You know that if Danny Ainge makes a deal, he will get a really good transaction. It will be really favorable for the Celtics. And if it is that deal that Woj was reporting, even if it was just next year's Lakers pick or Sixers pick, whichever's higher, and the third pick, if you get that to move down 2 spots to get a guy that you think is the best player in the draft anyway, why wouldn't you make that trade? So I think this is honestly would be a great move for the Celtics. As someone who roots for the Celtics, it's the number 1 pick. You if you miss on this, if Markelle Fultz turns out to be that franchise-altering guy that the Sixers and the Lakers reportedly think he will be, then Danny Ainge doesn't look too good. And if Josh Jackson, if he sucks and his play doesn't translate, or whoever they end up getting, then it looks awful. That's the only concern I have. Danny Ainge isn't the best evaluator of talent. So given that fact, maybe he's completely wrong on Markelle Fultz. Maybe he's completely wrong on Josh Jackson. That's really where my worries lie regarding this trade.
I think when you look at it, just completely level-headed, third party, you see, okay, one team in Philly that has all their assets, and if they trade these apart, they won't have any other assets that aren't their own, in the sense of like picks that they got from someone else or whatever. You know what I mean? So if they make this trade, that'll mean that they'll still have the 2019 Kings pick, but they'll be giving up some stuff, but at the same time, they'll still have all their picks, and they'll have that young core. A young core of Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid would be one of the best, if not the best, young core in the NBA. With the Celtics, they'll have even more assets, and I'm thinking if they do this, they'll get Josh Jackson, a player they really want, and also they'll have more assets to even just trade away to get a star player. I saw Jimmy Butler. I actually saw something that was maybe it will be a 3-team trade with the Sixers, Celtics, and Bulls, and I could see this happening. Philly sends over Jahlil Okafor, the 2018 Lakers first-round pick, and the 2021 first-round pick to the Bulls. The Celtics get number 3, and they get Jimmy Butler. And then The last part of the deal would be the Sixers would get number 1, and it would be a 3-team trade of that respect. And that would be something that would be big for all teams. They would all definitely be making moves. Obviously, the Bulls in more of a rebuild mode. But yeah, I mean, they'd all be getting some assets there. But I think this is a pretty even trade for both teams if it goes through on draft night. The only way that it won't is obviously Ainge wants to be careful. He wants to make sure Jackson's there. I'm assuming he's the guy they want.
Or Isaacs. It could be that kid from Florida State, but Jackson's the reported guy.
Right. But if he had a few guys in mind at 3, the trade would have been done by now. The second after that medical report was done, I think the trade would be over with.
I don't think that's necessarily true. He has leverage. Maybe he's just waiting to see if someone is going to pay more than what the Sixers are willing to give up. I don't know if that's really possible because I don't know if any other team has the same type of assets as the Sixers, but that could be true. I think there's a couple guys that he probably likes in that 3 to 6 pick range. John Isaacs being one of them, and obviously Josh Jackson. Yeah,
I'm just saying this because I would usually think that, but at the same time, this isn't really just speculation as much as it's more of a quote-unquote, it looks like this is a sure thing. And if either team backs out of this now, it's going to diminish a lot of respect they have among other GMs. Because if you back out of a trade like this, other GMs will be more reluctant to trade with you.
I think GMs are already reluctant to trade with the Celtics.
I know, but this will even make it worse. If someone backs out like that, it diminishes credibility that you have as a GM. So this is what I think we'll see happen on draft night. So let's say right now, I'm thinking about it, the Celtics love Jackson. So they're going to go into draft night. They're going to take Fultz, number 1. After they hear all the latest buzz about who the Lakers will probably take, whatever, when they have their biggest insight, they'll probably take Fultz at 1. They'll see who goes at 2, whether it's Lonzo, De'Aaron. Even if Jackson goes, that'll be a problem. But say he doesn't for just this hypothetical. And then the Sixers will take Jackson at 3. Then they'll make the trade and give up the pick. However, if the Lakers try to screw with them and take Jackson at 2, that'll either leave the Celtics might just keep Fultz, Markelle Fultz, or maybe they'll give him up for something else with the Sixers. I don't know. But if they just decide to keep him or whatever, basically what I'm seeing out of this is the Sixers it's probable that they're going to get Markelle Fultz, but if not, they're going to get Lonzo Ball. If Fultz is actually taken and then Jackson, I think they would take Lonzo after that. Looks like it's favorable for them at this time, and they have the assets to give up to do that, and they've got their young core for the future. This trade is definitely going to be an interesting one, and just because 2 teams that never trade together, and also just the fact that it's, like a top 5 pick. We haven't seen one of those get traded since what? I think like Kevin Love and OJ Mayo were like the big trade of like 2008, I think. That was the last one that we've seen. So it's always interesting.
Andrew Wiggins.
And NBA, yeah, you're right. It's always like fun. Like the free agency's fun. The trade deadline's fun, even though all the time it's not exactly exciting. Sometimes it's overhyped. It's a fun time.
Yeah, and you need it around this time of the year. It's the summer. We're approaching the All-Star break for baseball. There's nothing to talk about for us. So to have the draft, both the NHL and NBA draft next week, they're I think the same day. That's awesome. That's great. So we have something to talk about. One thing I do want to touch on, though, you mentioned earlier the potential for a blockbuster deal with Jimmy Butler being involved in 3-team trade between Chicago, Philadelphia, and Boston. I don't want that. And I've been on the record as to saying that the Celtics need to build for 5 years from now, not for next season. And if they go after Butler and give up a lot of their picks to get this guy, it's a complete waste, in my opinion. You want someone who you can build around, who will, who's young, who's just coming out, who still has their prime ahead of them. Jimmy Butler's young. He's great. He's one of the top guards in the NBA. He's not a difference maker for the Celtics, though. He's not going to put them over the top. They're not going to beat Cleveland. And even if they somehow did, they're not even going to come close to being the Warriors. So I think it's stupid. Another trade that's been proposed is Sacramento trading the 5th and 10th pick that they have this year, plus Willie Cauley-Stein to the Celtics for that number 1 pick, which I think is stupid. I think that's 10th. Too much. You think it's too much for Sacramento?
Yeah, that's too much. Yeah, I think that's a lot. I think look at this. Okay, one with the. I
also think I think it would be bad for the Celtics personally.
Really? Okay.
I think the drop off between the 1st pick and the 5th pick, that's a big drop off. That's like you can get more for that asset. I'd rather have next year's Lakers pick moving down 2 spots than the fifth and the 10th plus Willie Cauley-Stein, who's like 24, 25. He's a good center we talked about before the show, but again, not a difference maker.
I think that giving up that's a weird trade because with the Sixers, you're getting 3 first-round picks. Well, 2, because I think the 1 and 3 cancel out because it's 1 for 1, so they get 2 extra first-round picks. And it would be the Lakers pick next year, 2018. It'll probably be top 10, but you don't know what that pick is going to be. And then a 2021 first-round pick, only God knows what that'll be. And that'll actually be within like a protected range.
Well, we also don't know the details. Like, I think what they could write into this deal, I think it's possible. And I've heard it floated around this week on among sports media members, is they could say, we want whichever pick next year is higher. So if it's the Philadelphia 76ers pick, we'll take that one. If it's the Lakers who have the higher pick, we'll take that one. They could realistically have 2 top 3 picks next season, given the fact that they had that Brooklyn Nets pick straight up next year. Which again, they have a lot of assets. You can't keep all of those assets, and I don't think they're going to want to draft all those guys. So you could make that deal. I just again, Jimmy Butler's not the guy, but we should wait and see what the details of this trade are. Danny Ainge is going to be working on that.
And the only thing that I really trust out of this is Woj. And we saw Woj tweeted a little bit ago about the trade between these 2 teams. I retweeted one of the things that he said, but the plan for Markelle Fultz is to visit Philly today, clear way towards finalizing a deal for Boston's number 1 pick. Obviously, clearing way would be to get the medical report from him because the Sixers want that, obviously. I saw something before, it was hilarious, of what was it? It was the Sixers making sure that Markelle Fultz officially has a broken foot so they can trade for him with all the injuries they've dealt with. But here's
I saw another tweet just to interrupt. It was Danny Ainge, first child is born. Mrs. Ainge, let me hold him. Danny, sorry, hon, I just flipped him for twins and 3 future babies. Great. I gotta give credit to it was at ETD51 tweet that. So
that is hilarious. But the last one recently, discussions have centered on the Sixers sending 2017 number 3, 2018 Lakers pick, and possibly a 2021 first. I think that's better. I thought the Celtics would ask for the 2018 Lakers pick and the 2019 Kings pick because that Kings pick could be more valuable. But I mean, if it's that, I think it's more better for the Sixers. But overall, it's going to be an even trade. And you talked about you don't want Jimmy Butler involved. And I understand that. I get that. But if he's not, and if it's just these 2 teams, this is the Atlantic Division really helping each other out. The Celtics helping the Sixers, and the Sixers helping the Celtics. And you don't see that much. These teams do not like each other. So you don't see these 2 teams going out of their way to help each other out. But the fact that they both help each other out a lot is huge. And so let's say Boston makes this trade. They get the future first. They worry about them later. Number 3 comes around. It goes Markelle Fultz to the Sixers, and then the next pick goes around, and it's the Lakers take Lonzo. Number 3 comes. The Celtics take Jackson, who is a Jimmy Butler type, in my opinion. He really reminds me of Jimmy Butler. What's the next move with him? Is he going to play the 2? Is he Avery Bradley's replacement, but not as good of a shooter, going to try to repair that jump shot? Is he going to come off the bench and try to prove his worth there? I don't know where they go with him, but I just see him fitting. He fits that Boston mentality. He's an extremely competitive guy. He'd rather die than lose. He's crazy. Like, he's got that chip on his shoulder.
And he's the exact type of player that Danny Ainge loves. That versatile guy who has that mentality that you were speaking of. And he's he's just a freak athlete, someone who could play on both ends. If he is on the Celtics, I think Markelle Fultz too. Markelle Fultz will get more time than Josh Jackson would, but he's probably getting no more than 15 minutes a game. And the reality is they're going to have to part ways with probably Avery Bradley or whoever, and maybe we'll see one of these guys involved in a trade next week, like Marcus Smart or Avery Bradley. Who knows? They haven't been reported as being involved in these trade talks, but that could be the case. You shouldn't expect Josh Jackson to win Rookie of the Year. Whoever the Celtics to get to win Rookie of the Year next season. That doesn't mean that they made a bad pick. They should have a deep roster, and they have a lot of guards. So that is a question mark. Where's he going to fit in? And if they do get that Josh Jackson type, does that mean they're more likely to get a Blake Griffin than they are a Gordon Hayward this free agency?
And those are all possibilities. With the Celtics, it's so like ambiguous. There's so many different possibilities, and with Ainge, he's so secretive. You don't know what's going to happen. When they took Brown last year, yeah, it is. When they took Brown last year, no one knew that. They all thought they were going to take Dunn or someone else. They took Jaylen Brown, and so who knows what's going to happen this year. So we talked about the Celtics side with Jackson, where he'd fit. I think he'd get a lot of playing time because I think he's going to come in there with a better, stronger defensive mentality. Maybe he'll take away some of Brown's minutes. Those guys are going to have to fight for minutes. Look at the other side now with the Sixers. And we say the 2021 first-round pick is involved. But let's, for a hypothetical, make things interesting. Let's say that Kings pick is involved. And that's been a lot of debate in Philadelphia media. Is Markelle Fultz worth it to give up, to swap picks, but also give up that Lakers pick next season and that Kings pick in 2019? I'm going to say yes, and I'll tell you why right now. Making that trade, one, if they really think Markelle Fultz is that guy, that point guard that can play off the ball and really fit well with Ben Simmons, and combined with him, Embiid, Simmons, if those three end up being the best young core in basketball, I think that alone makes it worth it. But this is why giving up these other picks aren't as significant, or isn't as isn't that big. To get those picks, they gave up nothing, and now those picks have grown. Those picks have grown into very sizable assets. The 2018 Lakers first-round pick, that's going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 pick next season. Lakers got a lot of problems. They got that pick from dealing away Michael Carter-Williams, who barely gets minutes for the dysfunctional Bulls. The 2019 Kings first-round pick, you know what they got that from? A salary dump trade where they had to give away 2 players that they had the rights to in Europe, who the Kings have cut, just to take the contracts of Jason Thompson, Carl Landry, and they also got Stauskas in the deal, and pick swap this year, which worked, and a 2019 first-round pick. They didn't give up much to get these assets. So the fact that they really didn't put much into it, if you see a guy that's a franchise guy, why not make the move?
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
what I see.
There's no overpaying if you think he's the real deal. If they think that he's the real deal, trade up to get him. And you mentioned it. They still have their first-round pick next season. They have 2 first-round picks, 2 likely top 10 first-round picks, in my opinion, maybe even top 5. So you don't need it. It's not essential that you have that. You have your young core in Simmons, Embiid, and whoever you get in this draft. Try to develop that. If you think Markelle Fultz is head and shoulders above everyone else, take him. My only problem is I don't think a lot of NBA scouts think that Markelle Fultz is head and shoulders above everyone else. It's kind of like a mesh between 1 and 5, and I think that's how Danny Ainge sees it. It's not worth it to take this pick when we could just drop down 2 spots and get another first-round pick. It's just kind of like bringing in all these assets. But I'm not a part of the Philadelphia 76ers front office, so I don't know.
Are you sure?
I think
I thought you were a special advisor to Brian Colangelo.
Unpaid and unrecognized, yes.
The unpaid intern.
The unpaid intern who
made
they
those
don't know
decisions.
Yeah, that's me. So yeah, I agree with you on the overall point, though. They have plenty of assets to burn, and it's just a matter of if you think it's worth it. Because if they think it's worth it, you're really not giving up all that much in the grand scheme of things. You're kind of set. And I know that's a weird thing to say about the Philadelphia 76ers, given how the past 4 or 5 seasons have gone. But they have a good young core. You can't ignore that. And if you think Markelle Fultz is going to round up that big 3, that future big 3, where you can get that Minnesota Timberwolves-like core, then do it. That's the way to go, and they should be happy with the position they're in, especially given where they were 3 years ago.
And if the Celtics get 2 more first-round picks just to move up 2 spots, I think that's going to be a great deal.
It's mutually beneficial. It works for both 100%. Teams, and that's the thing. 2 teams in the Atlantic Division who are helping each other out. You don't see it a lot, but I think this will be a really good thing for both teams if it does happen.
And that's going to do it for our emergency podcast regarding the the Sixers and Celtics most likely trade that probably will go down. It just shows what the Sixers are going to have on the table for draft night, and it shows that the Celtics are eagerly trying to swap that first-round pick for more future assets. I've never seen a team with this many assets, but it looks like they're going to have a lot more in the future. Our show's website, jonandleboshow.com. Check it out. I just posted an article on there, the 5 things that are worse than the Philadelphia Phillies. Alex has posted a few articles on there about Kevin Durant, LeVar Ball. A lot of good stuff coming. We have contributing writers that are going to contribute in the near future, and Gus Weinstein, Connor Weingarten, and a few others. Also, a new show coming this Thursday. You can follow both of us on Twitter. And that Thursday, Alex, we'll definitely be previewing the draft a lot more, considering that it'll be that night.
For sure. Can't wait.
All right, guys. Take care, and we'll see you on Thursday.